Yeah, let's get this thing started. So, as you alluded to, Josh, we could call this the NFT.NYC edition of the community call. A bunch of us are meeting up here in New York, and we're attending the conference, and then we're working on announcing what's next for our NFT platform, which is pretty exciting. Hopefully, that'll come in the next few days. Not sure when this video will get published, but if anyone else happens to be in New York and wants to say hi, we'd love to know that you're here. So please reach out. And of course, you can always find us anytime at originprotocol.com/Discord. For today's agenda, I think we will primarily talk about deployments that are happening, big upgrade that's happening later today, and strategy deployment later this week. We've also got the OGN Rescue that we would like to deploy soon. And then we got some other sprint priorities that are primarily dealing with front-end concerns for the OUSD dApp. There are a few announcements that I think we'll go through first, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about governance proposals that have passed, and then also analytics, which is kind of an ongoing project, but wanted to circle back on that for a little bit. So any other thoughts on the agenda before we get started, or we can kick it off with some announcements and things to flag?
Let's get going.
Okay. So the big OUSD precision upgrade will be happening later today. I think as a result, OUSD will be paused for maybe up to 24 hours. Is that right, Daniel?
Up to 24, but probably 4 or 5.
Probably 4 or 5. Okay. And do you want to talk for just a minute about what that means for OUSD to be paused and why we're doing it?
Yes. Why we're doing the precision upgrade is to make it so that precise amounts get transferred from account to account. Right now, there can be a little bit, 1/1,000,000th of a trillionth extra of a dollar when an account or when funds are transferred. So this doesn't make anybody lose any money, and in the big picture, it doesn't cause any problems for OUSD's internal accounting or the whole system. But what it does do is it throws any contracts or external systems that are expecting precise balance changes for a loop. And so since we're just about to massively increase OUSD's total value, we're just going to go ahead and fix this now before we make everything big. So we're just basically, if you have a fraction and you've got a number on top and a number on the bottom, we're just multiplying both those numbers by 1,000,000,000. The resulting number stays the same, but it's 1,000,000,000 times more precise as we go. So we're going to be doing, first we're going, as a part of the upgrade process, we're going to pause minting and redeeming from OUSD. And then this means that until that will be the last thing we undo coming out of the upgrade process. So that way, no OUSD backing funds will be at risk during this upgrade until we're beyond confident that everything's working. We'll actually even be able to unpause OUSD for transfers before allowing the backing funds to be moved in or out again. So first we're going to be pausing OUSD mints and redeems, then we'll be switching over to an upgrade contract. This will be a special purpose contract that basically just increases these numbers for balances and for the ratio of balances. We'll be running that through every contract or every address in the system, increasing the precision on it. Before we start running that, we will run a scan of every single OUSD address to see which ones need to be upgraded and which ones are good. Then after we've gone through and updated every address, we'll run through a scan again, checking every address. We'll also check the balances on those, that they come out correctly at the end, so we'll know that everything's been upgraded. We'll then test this on a forked copy of mainnet to verify that everything moves correctly around after the upgrade as well. We've done this at least twice before this process has even started, verifying that the upgrade process works in simulations. So we'll be verifying it again after we've actually run the upgrades. During this time, while we've got this special upgrade contract in process, if OUSD were giving balance of answers or responding to normal stuff, it would be some accounts might be upgraded and some accounts might not be upgraded. And that would be not good and confusing because it might look like an account suddenly didn't have money or could suddenly increase after something had been transferred in. So this upgrade contract disables all transfers, and it also disables all balance of checks. So anything that tries to check a balance, basically anything in the OUSD like Uniswap or whatever, will fail during this process, both because you can't transfer OUSD and because you can't balance of OUSD. Once this upgrade is complete, we'll be switching back to a regular OUSD contract that will be the one in use going forward. We'll then check that in check transfers live to make sure that everything's working correctly, and also we should do a rebase. Once that is good, then we will unpause the mints and redeems and we'll be done with the upgrade.
Very cool. Thanks for walking through all of that. So you will, after you do all the simulations with the forked copy of mainnet, then you'll re-enable transfers and then you'll test some manually. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we'll test after the upgrade is complete, although we haven't switched it to live. We'll test it first, then we'll re-enable transfers, test it again, actually live, and then re-enable mints and redeems.
Sounds good. Sounds like we should let you get started on that sooner rather than later. There's a lot to do. Okay. Couple other things to flag. You mentioned a rebase. We were expecting one to happen sometime early this morning, and it did not. Did you get a chance to look into that yet?
Yes, that's just that the keeper ran low on funds. We did a harvest and a buyback. Our harvests are currently, we can gas optimize them some. Right now they're currently using Compound's harvest all method, which goes through and sort of tries to harvest from every market that Compound has instead of just the 3 markets that we're in. So plus higher gas fees meant that the weekend's harvest was about $2,000 worth of gas used for it. So it dropped it back down below their minimum gas amount. So that's why the rebase didn't run. So Josh, if you could put more in there.
Will do. And we should set up some sort of monitoring on that wallet so we get nagged when it's running low versus finding out this way.
Yeah, Micah, you want to put that on a list to
Yep.
do? Thank you.
Yep, I've got that. And I think you also mentioned optimizing gas consumption for the harvest, so I can put that on the list too.
Yes.
Yep. And going back to this precision upgrade, for peace of mind of people who are listening in, the upgrade contract was part of the audit with Open Zeppelin, correct?
Yes, it was part of the Open Zeppelin audited it.
Great. And then is there, any scenarios here of things that might go wrong that we should, plan ahead for or discuss, or what sort of contingencies do we need to make here? If any.
Yes. So hopefully we'll be testing it every time because we're adjusting both the top of a fraction and the bottom of a fraction. We're simultaneously adjusting both the top of a fraction and bottom of a fraction for anyone who is a non-rebasing account because their rebase ratio stays the same. So we're adjusting both those at the same time. That shouldn't make any effect, or should even if we didn't upgrade them, they would still work. For the rebasing accounts, we are multiplying their balance basically by 1 trillion. However, the very first thing we're doing is multiplying the rebase ratio by 1 trillion, which means that if for some reason we didn't catch an account, its balance would be too low rather than too high. If we miss a balance, we don't
We're in the process of getting set up.
they don't get all the money, basically. Also, because of the way OUSD's rebasing works, where there's total, it's based off basically what it thinks the total value of the contract is. That means even if we also missed something, it would rebase as normal, basically. It wouldn't do a giant weird rebase. That account that we missed would be low, and so that's I think the typical failure method of this is that if we missed upgrading an account, that account will be low. But we shouldn't miss an account because we'll be running an automated tool to check everything afterwards, and we're checking that the balances when we add up every single account matches what we expect for OUSD. The second concern is that we are doing essentially the equivalent of like a trillion times rebase, sort of from the external point of view, and so we don't want any external systems to be confused. So to avoid that, we are basically changing the names of methods that let you see that information. So it'll be backwards compatible in theory, where you'll see a value that looks like it just keeps on trucking just as normal for the rebase ratios after the upgrade's done. We're adding in another method for the new high-res version of the numbers. So those are the two main concerns. And I guess the third thing is to make sure the rebase continues working correctly, but we'll be verifying that both in simulations and before we allow money to move in and out of USD again.
Okay. Thanks for running through that. And both KuCoin and VirgoX are aware and ready to go on this?
I don't know that I don't think I've talked to VirgoX. I've talked to KuCoin with their engineers, and they were aware and ready for it.
Okay. I know we messaged the VirgoX guys, but I'm not sure if they engaged or responded there. I guess we're not anticipating this will cause any issues with them, given the new backwards compatibility stuff you're adding, right?
Yes. What I would expect from an external person is that if the most that should happen is that they would stop rebasing.
Okay.
Up until they change which method they're listening to.
And I don't think VirgoX had implemented any sort of rebasing. I think theirs is just it was KuCoin in particular that did their fancy staking implementation.
Yeah.
So it actually begs the question: what happens on KuCoin? Like, does their exchange wallet just grow? Or no, it doesn't grow at all because they haven't opted in. So it's just static, and they do their own accounting for their customers.
I guess the second issue for exchanges is that there'll be no transfers in or out, no deposits or withdrawals during this, just during the upgrade process.
Okay. We might get back into that a little bit when we're talking about these sprint priorities, but I think that pretty well covers what the plan is. So thanks, Daniel. The other thing that's going to happen sometime soon is that the time lock will be ramped up from 1 minute to 48 hours. We've discussed that a couple of times in this meeting, when that would happen in comparison to us seeing, just letting this marinate for a little bit and making sure everything works, but also getting it in before a liquidity mining campaign would start. So what are your latest thoughts on when we would do that change? Anyone?
I think we'll wait till we'll give the precision upgrade a little bit of time, make sure there's no flashing lights or anything broken. Then we'll increase it, to something like 6 hours or 12 hours, and then we'll wait a day or two, and then we'll bump it up again with the plan to be at 48 hours by the time we turn on liquidity mining. So
agreed.
Crawl, then walk, and then finally run.
Or as the case may be, run, then walk, then crawl.
Even better.
So do you think that would happen before the convex strategy deployment, Daniel, or would we try to get that strategy out first?
I think it's independent of it. We have the strategist can pull funds out of any contract or put them in, so it's not we aren't stuck in something that's a problem. If we,
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it shouldn't be dependent on the time lock.
Okay. All right. Those are the three announcements that we had on the agenda. We can go ahead and get into sprint planning a little bit. Not much planning, I think, will necessarily happen in this meeting, but just wanted to recap what our priorities are for the next 2 weeks, starting last Thursday. So we talked about the precision upgrade that will be done today, and then the convex strategy deployment will come shortly after, hopefully this week. Then Doman has several DApp-related projects he's been working on. One is the front-end changes for liquidity mining, and that I think I saw on our sprint planning doc that was an extra small project, but I'm not sure if we accounted for all the APY calculation that he would have to do to display those numbers in the DApp. So he was looking at how those are implemented on Curve side, and I think one of them turned out to be a little bit more complicated. He's not with us today, but I'll check in with him and see how that's going. Then the next thing on his list is there was an issue with Curve transaction routing not working in the DApp. So I think he's been digging into that, and I will get an update on it also. Then his last project is the transaction history view that we've talked about here before. But I think that we might, not to jump ahead on the agenda, but I think we might want to do a little bit more tweaking on the analytics reporting before we roll out the transaction history view. So we can get into that in a minute and figure out how those two rank in terms of priority. But there's a lot there that Doman's working on. And then I just saw UPAN a few minutes ago, and I was talking to him about the OGN rescue deployment. I think we might be able to get that going in the next couple of days, or maybe later this week, since we've got other deployments happening sooner. But is there, maybe Franck, do you have anything to add on that other than just getting coordinated and pulling the trigger on it?
Yeah, no, I don't have any update on that, sorry.
Okay. Yep, no problem. And then the last thing, Daniel, I think you added here today, which is rescuing the comp governance tokens that we were unable to harvest over the past several weeks.
Yeah, and so that's written. We just have to run one governance proposal before we can run it. So it's basically it's going to be very simple to do.
Okay. Any idea when that might happen?
Probably right after the OGN rescue.
Okay. All right. And so then the last thing that I alluded to that wasn't formally in the sprint planning last week was just making some tweaks to the email that we're getting automatically once a week, analytics report. And a quick plug for that, if anyone is interested in being on that email list, just ping me or Doman in Discord, and we'll add you so that you get those updates. Any other comments on sprint priorities for the next week and a half? There were a couple of governance proposals that recently passed that I wanted to highlight. One was liquidity mining program that we've talked about here several times before. Was wondering, Josh, once we get front-end changes made and the precision upgrade done, what are the next steps there, do you think, to get that going?
Yeah, so it's all about the timing. So the campaigns run on a weekly basis with Curve for the bribes. And so that's on Wednesday will be the start of the next bribe campaign for the next week. So it kind of depends where we're at by Wednesday and whether I think it's quite likely going to get bumped to next week, given how much is going on. In fact, we still haven't gotten precision grade upgrade out, and there's all the stuff going on with NFT.NYC. So likely is going to get bumped to next week. But if we can do it if we're ready to go by Wednesday next week, that would be ideal, as that's the start of the next campaign.
Okay, and what do we need to do to make that happen other than get these projects out of the way, these blockers out of the way?
That is pretty much it. We're largely ready to go with all of the other integration stuff from Curbside. It's just like marketing, emails, promoting it, and then funding the right smart contracts with OGN. But pretty much everything's ready to go. We're largely just blocked on these contract upgrades.
All right. Well, thanks for pushing that along over the last couple of months and getting it to a point where it's ready to go.
It's been a journey.
All right. The other proposal I wanted to highlight was the DAI allocation to Aave strategy. Daniel, that's just a strategist action.
Since we're switching the default over, that will also be a governance, or that will take a governance thing. So I just add that to the list above on priorities. It'll be extremely tiny, super simple to do. But yes, it will also be a governance proposal.
Okay. And when you say a governance proposal for that and for whatever we were talking about a few minutes ago, do you mean you don't mean another snapshot proposal?
Correct, not snapshot. I mean, go through the time lock.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so maybe we should just say time lock proposal or something.
Okay. An on-chain proposal. Cool. All right. And then there were a couple of other snapshot governance proposals that passed a couple days ago, and then maybe a week or so ago. They deal more with, I think, Polygon. Polygon in both cases. So we'll put those on the roadmap and figure out where they fall in terms of prioritization with the rest of what we're doing for the NFT platform. And I think we had talked in this meeting a week or two ago about what OUSD on Polygon or on an alternate chain or a side chain or layer 2 would look like. So that's a whole can of worms that we'll have to figure out when the time comes. But definitely saw those proposals and appreciate everyone participating in that process. The last thing that I had on the agenda was talking about the analytics report that the Domain has been working on, that we've all been getting for a few weeks. I really appreciate getting that report because even though I know I can, run queries, I can go to analytics.ousd.com and see what's going on. It's good to have that reminder and that trigger to pay attention to the numbers. But there are a few things that I think are missing from that report that we want to include, and then some other things that we had talked about in the past that we haven't included there yet. And I wanted to run through them to see how you guys feel about prioritizing these, because there's a lot in that report, and there are a lot of things that we can analyze, a lot of questions we can answer. But if we can distill it down to just a handful of things that we really care about that are really indicative of our traction with OUSD, then I think that'll be that much more effective. So obviously, the most important thing that I think should be front and center on that report is total supply of OUSD, aka TVL. That's the number that is really, it's a great indicator for most projects, but it's an even better indicator for us because it not only represents the size of user deposits or user minting, user purchases, but it also represents, in a way, the performance of the protocol itself. If that number is going up because our yield is increasing or because our yield is maintaining its level, then that's a really great, that's a core component of what we should be measuring: adoption and performance of the thing. So those are both represented in total supply. Then I think we would like to measure the reach of OUSD. So how many addresses hold either any OUSD or some non-negligible amount, say 100 OUSD, something like that. Third thing would be activation. How many new accounts have either acquired OUSD or interacted with our DApp in some way? That's something I think we should be measuring on a weekly basis and maybe a monthly basis also. Active users would account for not only the ones who are not only the reach and the activation, but would also account for churn. If people are getting out of OUSD and not coming back, we would want to know that. And then the last three things that I think we should be paying attention to are all related to the liquidity mining campaign. So we have this high level hypothesis that as OUSD is minted and supplied to Curve, it will encourage. It will cause the boost level on OUSD to increase, and that will cause the APY to increase, and that should be a virtuous cycle that leads to more people wanting to hold OUSD independent of the liquidity mining campaign. So these last three metrics would measure, to what degree that is happening. And those are the maybe 7 numbers that I would like to be watching every few days, or even more frequently during this first week of the mining campaign. Any comments on that or any thoughts?
Just channeling Matt a little bit here on clarifying our language. So we talked about TVL and OUSD and also circulating supply. And when we're talking about OUSD specifically, those are the same. But it may be confusing as we throw Curve into the mix, where the total value locked is actually twice whatever the circulating supply of OUSD in Curve is. And that's because the OUSD has to be paired with free CRV, which is made up of USDT, USDC, and DAI. And so for every $1 million in Curve, only 500K of that is going to be OUSD. So let's keep that in mind with our language. The TVL and Curve is going to be different from the circulating supply, which is really what we're trying to push on the OUSD side. So let's just make sure we're clear about that. And then our targets, as we talk about what our goals are for the liquidity mining campaign, is really about increasing the circulating supply of OUSD, not the TVL, which is in Curve, because those are two very different numbers.
So specifically, you mean the supply of OUSD that's not in Curve, that's not participating in the liquidity mining campaign?
What we care about most is the circulating supply of OUSD, no matter where in the world that is. That is the most important number for us.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else have thoughts or comments on numbers we should be paying attention to?
I think these are right, and we can certainly adjust them if they are not interesting or valuable, but this seems like a great place to start.
Okay, great. So I will talk to Doman about tweaking the analytics report that we get in the email. And then, of course, the other thing that we intend to do that we haven't gotten around to yet is updating our analytics dashboard so that you can see all these numbers front and center. You don't have to wait for an email or find it in your inbox from last week or something like that. We want you to be able to go to the dashboard and see what's happening in real time. So we probably need to figure out, not all of this is purely on-chain analytics, what I just laid out here. So I think it's probably going to be important to have our own dashboard there. We'll see how much of it we can accomplish with Dune Analytics. That's something that I think Doman was planning to look into. But we want to at least make sure that our analytics page conveys these critical metrics, and we'll promote that more actively once we have that. And so I don't know that that's something we'll be able to design with Ari, or even that we need to design something. Probably just need to confirm like what our implementation is going to be, and then we can figure it out as we go.
Yeah, I don't think we have to design it. Just get the numbers up first and then tweak from there after we've got them useful. The current way we're calculating active users and stuff is very much in kind of a batch report style, and probably wouldn't be for the user numbers. Probably wouldn't be easy to do live. The other numbers are easy live.
Okay. Well, that is all that I had on the agenda. What else did you guys want to talk about, if anything, before we go? Just cleaning up the meeting notes. Those, of course, will be in the Origin Dollar channel, discussion channel on Discord. And just another plug for meeting us there. If you're not in Discord already, you can go to originprotocol.com/Discord, and it will take you right to it. There were 2 action items that we captured. One was for me to add a couple of GitHub issues, one for a more efficient, more gas efficient harvest, and then also for keeper monitoring. And Josh, you're going to fund the keeper one more time. Anything else that I missed? If not, then we'll see you at the party.
Oh, one quick thing here, just before we go into it. What is our plan around public communication with this upgrade? Max, are we going to do like some talk, like announce this on Twitter or in Telegram, or what's our communication plan around this?
Yeah, I think Aaron and I were discussing about putting out a tweet and just letting people know. But we can probably sync up offline as well and come up if we need to put anything out.
Tell you what, we can after this we can meet in the Origin Hangout voice chat channel, and I'll just be there throughout the entire upgrade process. And we should tweet before. I know we let people know ahead of time, but we should let people know before we do the first governance action to take OUSD offline. We should let people know that it's scheduled and just repeat it again, and then we can get in contact with you guys and let you know once it's back online to tweet again.
Cool. That sounds good.
You're aiming to kick it off in the next like hour or so?
Yeah, we hope to be possibly in the next half hour. Or Frank, you want to go with
the plan is noon. The plan hasn't changed. It's noon PST.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then we'll see you 1 trillionth on the other side of this thing.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
See you guys. Good meeting.
So long.
Bye.
Take care.
Later, folks.